Hello everybody, the Nameless Narcissist here once again. Simple man diagnosed with NPD, giving you the facts on narcissistic personality disorder and the stuff that goes on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And keep in mind, I'm no clinician. I can only speak to my own experiences and the research that I read. So there is an academic debate. Well, okay, I'm gonna actually start off on another note. I get a lot of people who say that, narcissism is a mental illness, it's a choice, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sorry, but you're wrong, like ostensibly. If this wasn't a mental illness, this would not be a treatable condition, right? 53% of us go into remission. And also we wouldn't have this subjective suffering. I wouldn't feel empty. I wouldn't feel like I can't connect to anybody. I can't feel like everything I do isn't fucking good enough and everything I say is wrong. And when I say everything I say is wrong, it feels like people are disagreeing with me all the time. And that's the black and white thinking, because somebody disagrees with what I say and it feels like they're just telling me you are wrong. You are stupid and wrong and ugly. Probably not the last one. And why would there be so much research into these personality traits if they were just not a mental illness? You know what I mean? It's kind of ridiculous. And I think this is something being perpetrated by, and I think we can all kind of agree that it's a business model nowadays to basically hit a rat on narcissists and tell everybody that they're terrible monster people. Hell, some of those empath channels, I'm not saying they're all bad, but there's a few that are like straight up cultish, like my gosh. And they literally say, narcissists are possessed by demons. If you think that narcissists are possessed by demons, please leave my channel. I don't need to deal with that. I get so sick of it. Anyways, and also this archetypal narcissist that people think of, very rare presentation of narcissism. That presentation, and is that presentation does that even exist? Is it a mental illness, basically? I would agree that this archetypal presentation where they have no personal suffering, where they're just arrogant, they think they're the best person ever. Yeah, maybe that's not a mental illness. Let's be honest, because most narcissists, and for my definition, all narcissists are going to have subjective suffering. I don't think you can have a mental illness if you are not suffering. If you're making other people suffer, that's a whole different thing. You have to have a whole different conversation there. Because why in the world would, if you can't treat it, and make this person happier, we can't diagnose people from afar, right? If you're just treating their victims, you can't diagnose them. So why would they have a mental disorder? You can't diagnose somebody for being an asshole. Anyways, but this does tie into another thing that I was seeing, which is a very huge academic, not a huge one, but it's an academic debate regarding if personality disorders are even real, right? Which I think if somebody thinks that, they either just hate people with personality disorders or they've never met somebody with one, honestly. There was literally a guy who was on the task force to make new diagnostic criteria for the DSM-5, which later became the Section 3 alternative criteria. But that guy left because he was like, my God, we have become too rigid in what normal personality is and trying to pathologize it. And I hope that he's coming from a place of we want to destigmatize and stuff like that. Because at least I can respect that mindset. I think it's super misguided, but I at least admire the mindset. But knowing that this was a clinician and researcher, honestly, people don't want to deal with people with cluster B personality disorders because they call us treatment resistant, et cetera, obnoxious and crap. And some of that's true, but it's just because they just don't have good treatment methods for these disorders and then write us off as treatment resistant. People thought about BPD, and people still don't want to deal with BPD, but people thought people with BPD were untreatable and treatment resistant, right? Then why am I tripping over my words? Then DPT, DBT, there we go. Jesus. Came out, and now it's seen as treatable. And it's kind of funny because I think it's only 30% of people with borderline drop out of treatment, and compared to narcissistic personality disorder, which is 50%, it's still comparable, right? This is still a treatable condition. And I just think those people who are trying to say that just don't want to treat people with personality disorders, because I think any of you who have met a narcissist, has met somebody borderline, they're obviously having this subjective suffering, right? They're obviously struggling their day to day. They are obviously not happy. We would not, a lot of us who get diagnosed wouldn't be seeking treatment if we were happy. But, and I didn't want to go to treatment for a long time just because I thought it made me look weak, even though anybody could look at me and I was a goddamn mess. Like, I swear to God, I don't think anybody didn't know I had something going on wrong with me. But again, nobody even told me I was a narcissist until, well, one guy did, but until I actually got diagnosed. They all thought I had bipolar just because I got angry all the time, which isn't what bipolar is, but whatever. And I also hear this thing a lot where it's like, oh my God, it's not helpful to tell somebody their personality is disordered. So personality disorder shouldn't exist, I guess. And like, sure, maybe we should come up with different names that are less stigmatizing, and I guess, but I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if somebody telling me my personality is disordered. It is disordered. You guys watch my videos all the time. You guys know I'm thinking crazy shit all the time that just is not conducive to what real life is. You know what I mean? If that's not a disordered personality, what is it? Because your personality effectively is your cognitions and how you act on those. And my cognitions are messed up. And so I have to basically modify my behaviors to match what other people's cognitions would be in a given moment. And it feels so invalidating that people would say a personality disorder doesn't exist because they're saying that it's wrong for them to tell me my personality disorder. If you take away the diagnosis, that means I am a completely normal person and I am just crazy for no reason. I am just a shitty person. I am just going throughout life being dramatic. And sure, I'm part of the erratic, dramatic, and emotional cluster, but that's so different than being able to call it a disorder rather than it's just me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to convey this to people who don't have a disorder. But I'm sure anybody who has any sort of disorder gets that impulse of, oh, it's not just me. This is something I can look at and grapple with, learn about that other people struggle with. It's not because of me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I just detest this. It's like, sure, maybe we can change the names. Why not? Whatever. Who cares? Earnestly. But do you think if we change the name of narcissistic personality disorder that anything's going to change? Honestly, I don't think that's going to immediately cure it. I mean, the stigma that's tied to the disorder itself that makes people think that this isn't a mental illness and that we aren't treatable, everybody's going to know what it could change to. If you're involved in learning about narcissism, everybody's going to be talking about that in these circles. And then this new name is just going to have the same amount of stigma attached to it. I mean, whatever. I also think getting rid of it as a disorder is delegitimizing towards people who are victimized by it too. Because I know here I always advocate for learning about people with NPD, because then you can be like, okay, this is just a sick person who they didn't know how to grapple with things, and a lot of that got taken out on me effectively, right? I think that's a fair way to view it once you get later on in your healing process. But then just to know, maybe this guy was just normal and I was a piece of shit and I deserve the abuse. I feel like that's kind of the mindset people will be forced into, right? Not forced into, but I feel like it's way more easy to deal with abusive behavior when you know that, when you have a reason that it's not because of you. Because ostensibly, if you are being abused, even if they are completely normal, well-functioning people, it's still not the person's fault. But that's way harder to get into that headspace about, right? Especially when you love them and everything. It's annoying. It really is. I don't know why there's this big push of, don't get me wrong, personality disorders are stigmatized, and I try to go against that at every single moment. But why would changing the name help? Why would making them not disorders help? I just don't get it. It seems so silly. It really does. I mean, because I proposed once, maybe if we really want to change the name of narcissism, it could be self-esteem regulation disorder, self-esteem dysregulation disorder, right? If we're going the same route that borderline is with the emotionally unstable disorder. But I don't know. I think narcissistic personality disorder sounds kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. I think the names right now are kind of neat. That sounds so weird. I'm sorry. But that is kind of how I feel about it. And then I have self-esteem dysregulation disorder. I feel like people would take that so much less seriously too It's like, oh, you have bad self-esteem sometimes? It's like, no, not exactly. I guess we do run into a similar problem with, it's like, oh, you're a narcissist, you love yourself. It's like, no, not exactly. I guess sometimes, but I have very violent fluctuations in self-esteem. I always kind of hate myself. I just feel like people are making these, what are effectively semantics, matter way more than they should. That's my take on it anyways. That's basically all. I don't really have that much to say on this. Y'all have a good day. Take your fucking meds.